last week after we finished up the appropriations hearings, I had the opportunity to attend an event sponsored by the Indiana County Chamber of Commerce, and it was a great event, an after-hours event where they had educators, teachers, superintendents, principals come in, meet with the business community, talk about career pathways, internships, things like that. So I want to take a minute to give some kudos to the Chamber of Commerce and to our local educators in Indiana County. But I also had the opportunity during that after-hours session to speak with some of the educators and superintendents, knowing that I was going to have this opportunity to speak with you this morning. And I asked them, what are your top concerns? What should we be concerned with, and what should we talk about today? And their first was charter school funding. And I'm not going to talk about that because I know some of my colleagues are going to ask those questions later on. But their second concern was school security. And I know it's not part of your budget, but the governor has proposed cutting the safety grants from $60 million down to $15 million, a $45 million cut. And those funds were just distributed last week, and Indiana County school districts got a very small portion of that money. And it concerns me when we're proposing to cut it by $45 million that they're going to get even less money. And when they're telling me that that's a top concern of theirs, I'm wondering if it's a top concern of yours. We see so many mental health needs in our schools right now. Students are stressed, teachers are stressed because of these security needs. So I have to wonder and question why the governor would cut $45 million out of those funds. And I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
Representative Struzzi, last week I tried to speculate on this and paid the price of speculation on this funding. I have no idea. PCCD and the administration have conversations around their budget. I am not involved in those conversations, so I can't speak to the proposal going to PCCD. As it relates to school, safety and security, there are a number of initiatives that we're engaging in that's not included in anyone else's budget or portfolio. But I can share with you that some of what we're addressing is really working with schools to provide more mental health supports, to look at bringing in service providers into our buildings, to look at professional development and smaller grant opportunities to to provide those equipment or systems of safety and support in schools. I didn't ask, and probably by design, I didn't want to call them at the end of Friday night and ask how are you engaged in this to PCCD, but I don't know how those conversations went.
You would advocate for those funds to stay in the grant program because they seem so essential to me.
I don't know what the rationale is. I know for us, for example, there are times where we're going to see a reduction in certain line items over the course of the past 5 years. And so I've come to the General Assembly and have said, I understand why we need to see a reduction, but if you give me more flexibility in another area, I can make up for that. So I don't even know if those conversations are taking place.
Okay. And another big gap that's not really addressed in the budget that I saw or in your testimony, I see this as a serious impediment for our rural schools, and that's the lack of broadband access in the students' homes. I know, a lot of all the school districts in Indiana County have a hub within the school district, yet these kids go home and they can't do their homework assignments because everything today is based online. And I know they can go to the library or maybe to McDonald's or something like that, but that's really not conducive to a good education. So can you talk a little bit about any initiatives that you have to extend that service from the schools to the homes?
Sure. So the governor has a group working on broadband initiatives, and our Deputy Secretary of Library sits on that committee. And we, by design, I chose the team, identified our public libraries because they're the space that probably know better than anyone else the need for broadband and that type of access in our rural communities. And so we've been making some really strong recommendations around how to improve access to those communities. So we are at the table. Secondly, this is one of the things that we've seen as a kind of unintended consequence of our PA Smart grants and some of our other technology grants. We've seen intermediate units and local school districts looking to expand access by everything from providing hotspots to mobile labs that provide students that technology when they're home, and not only after school and on weekends, but we're even seeing some of that expand over the summer as well. So every chance we get, we're looking at tackling the digital divide, and we're part of the task force for the governor that's looking at that wholesale.
Well, thank you for that, and I also want to thank you for the funding for our public libraries. I know that's very important, but I do see an impediment there as well because of the way, I guess, the laws are structured. Our Indiana Free Library can only provide services to those living in Indiana or White Township. And again, it doesn't help those rural communities, but something to keep in mind. So, all right.
Great conversation to have.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.